Welcome to Energy Matters to You, August 16, 2017 edition. The Energy Matters to You podcast is a communication platform that features technologies and thought leaders working to advance energy efficiency. The Energy Matters to You podcast seek to connect buyers with sellers so that practical, cost-effective energy efficiency and sustainable energy solutions continue to gain market traction. Today's podcast is brought to you with support from Pro Insulation. Pro Insulation offers a variety of solutions for every application. Contractors, home remodelers, and homeowners can find the best insulation to suit their specific needs. Pro Insulation services are based on current building trends and science, along with the most advanced insulation products available for use today. We're your hosts. My name is Leo Ryan. I'm here with my co-host, Ron Galuli. Ron, how you doing?
Good morning, Leo. I'm doing well. And how are you?
I'm well. Have you been on the surfboard this summer?
Well, actually, I should be on it today. There's a tropical storm right off the coast, and I've been getting texts from Block Island, and my favorite spot, Jerry's Point, is going off, and there's no one out there, and I'm not there.
So
we'll be there Friday.
Well, yeah. We're bringing on a guest, Richard Costello, who's got some interesting perspective on surfing. And when we join him later, I'll make sure that he shares that with us. Hey, Ron, before we dive into our guest, what I want to do is have you talk a little bit about where the program administrators are relative to their incentive goals. I know you've been tracking that. Do you have any comment about the current state of their progress towards hitting incentive targets?
Yeah, sure, Leo. I scanned the most recent program administrator report for Massachusetts. And the most recent report was the end of Q1 for 2017. And it appears they're tracking right on target to hit their savings goals for that 3-year plan, which ends at the end of 2018. Some of the scuttlebutt that I do hear is that one of the PAs mentioned that their sales pipeline was dropping off, so that may impact 2018. And also there's a big concern about the maturity of the LED lighting market and what's rapidly becoming the baseline. And a lot of those products are expected to drop off what may be able to be incentivized over the coming years. So that's a big concern, and how to make up for that loss of LED lighting if that does happen.
Okay, so that's clearly areas that our guest and those listeners of the Energy Matters to You podcast should be paying attention to, because it significantly impacts their businesses.
Absolutely.
So today we have with us Richard Costello, who's the president of the Acela Energy Group. And Rich has been around the energy space for a long time. We're not going to give any specific dates, but his history includes a run with then Boston Edison, today Eversource, and power supply manager with the MBTA. So he's been in big institutional clients. He knows the utility side of the house, but has spent most of his career kind of in the private sector, providing all kinds of support in the energy trade. Rich, good to have you on the line.
Thanks. Glad to be here, and thank you, Leo and Ron, for having me.
I mentioned that little teaser that Ron does an awful lot of surfing. That's a real passion of his, and I understand that one of the professional outlets for you is training, and that brings you to kind of a nice part of the world to do that training.
Yes. I've been fortunate enough to do a lot of energy efficiency and energy procurement training out in California, where my son happens to also live, and spend a lot of time in Surf City. Watching him surf, but I don't do any surfing at all. I have the fun part of watching. I also have taught a lot and own a company out in Hawaii that does energy efficiency measures. So I've been to the fantastic surfing places in Hawaii, again, just as more a watcher than actually participating in it. I don't know if anyone want to actually see me on a surfboard. But,
it's a potentially ugly sight. Well, I think there's a business opportunity that Ron Galuli could come out and help you, and maybe he could get on those waves.
I think that'd be fantastic, Ron. What do you think?
I'll carry your suitcases, yes.
There you go.
So, Rich, your experience spans a real broad part of the marketplace and different specialties. But what we want to talk about today really is important in the supermarket industry. Now, supermarkets use an awful lot of energy. looked at some statistics about the average size supermarket, 50,000 square feet or so, spends over $200,000 in energy costs. So, and this breaks down to about $4 a square foot. So highly energy intensive as an industry. You want to flesh that out for us? How important are supermarkets in terms of energy consumption, and how necessary is it for them to look at their energy profile?
Sure. But the interesting thing about supermarkets and the food service industry in general is if you look at all the studies done by the Department of Energy and other groups around the United States, the statistic you brought up is very important. The usage per square foot, or the energy utilization rate, and that being so high amongst most of the industries out there, with the exception of maybe data centers. And so with that in mind, the most opportunity lies when someone uses the most energy in a diverse area of both lighting and refrigeration and mechanical. So it's a good opportunity. They do consume a lot of energy per square foot. So as far as being able to come up with energy efficiency measures and target them, that's an important thing for both the customers, vendors, and the utilities to look at. Also, the interesting fact is that in a lot of places, the energy bill somewhat equals the profit they get out of a store. And that can be, an estimate roughly, but an organization that understands that doing energy efficiency will go right to the bottom line, and oftentimes will have an investment internal rate of return far greater than building new supermarkets. So being able to cost effectively help them out and, reduce their energy costs and allow them to sell their product in certain parts of the country for less, it all comes into to a good thing economically, and also helps also in climate change. So reducing the amount of refrigeration needed, try to reduce the leaks, things like that. So not only is it economics that we're trying to do and have people meet their goals, but also reduce the contribution to climate change.
Okay. All right. Good background there. So, focusing on the economic benefits of focusing on efficiency, and obviously a larger social benefit in terms of climate change. Now, energy efficiency is not new to this marketplace. Give us kind of an update of your sense of what's been done, what can be done, where are the opportunities specifically, current state of the market impacting supermarkets.
Sure. Well, one of the companies that I own is called Retrocool Energy. And Retrocool Energy basically helps supermarkets and hotels and other types of facilities save on energy, primarily on mechanical HVAC and refrigeration. A lot of places we go to have already had the lights done, so we concentrate on pretty much the non-lighting possible measures. The current market out there, folks are, like we mentioned earlier, want to reduce their KW for climate reasons, KWHs. Also, electric utilities becoming, and this is an important note for everyone, the actual cost from your electric company is becoming more fixed fee in some instances, as well as a lot more KW demand related in the pie chart of costs. So reducing both kilowatt hours and KW is important, KWH. Also, some of the utilities in the Northeast still have robust kilowatt hour and KW programs. And an important measure also for people who want to continue to reduce their use is, Ron mentioned a little bit earlier, the sunset of LEDs being a new measure and being assumed to be coded measures going into the future. So that's the current state of the market. What we do in defining, I guess, the problem is going to be more air conditioning and refrigeration taxing the grid. And that's something that has always been around, but it's getting worse and worse, especially in the Northeast, where the summer peaking is happening during the warmest hours of the year. Now, one of the products that we sell the most of, to be honest with you, and frankly, is the Retromist product, which allows us to basically fool the vapor compression cycle and save energy and also increase capacity. Those are two important things that we're able to do, Leo, and we can go in a little detail if you like about that.
Hey, do me a favor. So, fool the compressor cycle. You called out two key benefits there. I just want you to take a moment there to highlight those so we understand what it is Retrocool is doing.
Sure. In any vapor compression system, which is like your refrigerator in your home or your chiller at work or your data center cooling system, there's a refrigerant inside, and the refrigerant changes between gas and a liquid, and that allows the transfer properly to remove heat from the building. When you do that, the heat has to be obviously taken into the environment. So the warmer the environment is, the hotter the refrigerant has to be. And that means more kilowatt hours consumed by your compressor, your electric compressor. So your compressor uses twice as much energy when it's 100 degrees out than when it's 70 degrees out. So it's not more a logarithmic type usage of energy when it gets hot outside. Okay. So if it's outside, our equipment uses a lot less energy. And this is just because of the ideal gas law and how the system works. If we can fool outside, the condenser outside, think that it's 70 degrees out instead of 100 degrees in the roof, then it's going to consume a lot less energy. We do that by misting water into the air. And this water is so small and so atomized, about 3 to 5 microns in diameter, that it has the same surface area. 1 gallon of water has the same surface area as a soccer field. So it immediately evaporates and it brings the temperature down 20 to 30 degrees Fahrenheit. So what we're doing is instead of warm air going over the condenser, cool air is going over it. So it thinks it's 70 degrees outside, hence the compressors don't have to work anywhere near as hard.
Right. Let me ask an obvious question about that. What are the geographic bounds of this kind of technology? Where does it work best and deliver the highest value?
Highest value would be on hot days when it's dry outside. That would be the highest value. The lowest value would be if it's a cool day and moist outside. The more moist it is outside, a little bit less effective the system is. But most of the time during the high peak days and areas of the country, it's going to be very effective. Okay. Now, look at the run hours is another question. Great question, Leo, you bring in there. There's a lot more run hours down the southern part of the United States, so the greater the kilowatt hour savings. Up in the Northeast, it's going to be the greater the KW because it's less run hours, but greater KW drop, which goes into the fact that many people do this to reduce their KW from their bills, and also they do it to increase the capacity. Oftentimes you'll see sprinkler hoses on roofs and you wonder why they're there. Well, they're sprinkling water on these condensers so they can be cooler in their facilities. Also, their ice cream won't melt.
Got it. So, hey, Rich, let me bring Ron in right now. Ron, you've spent a lot of time in discussion around measurement and verification of the impact of energy efficiency measures. As you hear Rich talk about controlling run hours and dropping KW, what's your impression about how the utility incentive programs have traditionally reacted to the Retrocool technology and compressor optimization in general?
Sure. Leo, actually, Rich, it was probably about half dozen years ago when you approached us when I was at National Grid with the technology. And we had an independent engineering firm take a look at the technology and run the analysis. And it actually showed, the projected savings was right on target. Essentially, Rich, you're turning that air-cooled condenser into an evaporatively cool condenser on those hot days. And so the calculation is pretty straightforward based on the ambient temperatures.
Yeah.
Good to know. Yeah, and Rich, let me just pose the same question to you. Obviously, you've been promoting Retrocool in different environments. How has the reception been? Let's start initially from the utility incentive perspective. What kind of feedback are you getting from them about the technology and its impact?
Sure. The technology is well accepted by the utilities around the country, and obviously in the Northeast, a lot of them have dealt with. The system reduces the KW during the peak periods of times, as well as does save kilowatt hours based on, obviously, the run hours of the systems. So the supermarket industry, since their condensers are running pretty much all the time or in the on position, it gets more run hours, saves more kilowatt hours. So each time we go to a utility to get the rebates, it's always custom measures. So we have to go through that process, which is a collaborative process, pulling back and forth and meeting it at the agreed upon kilowatt hours and KW savings. I will say one thing of interest. Some states have energy efficiency programs that only reward kilowatt hour savings, and they don't award KW savings. Some utilities do, like Con Ed and Connecticut, and other utilities don't. Those are just 2 kilowatt hours in the Northeast. It's sometimes difficult in our systems when applied to rooftop units because even though we save valuable kilowatt hours during the peak time when they're the most costly, utility programs don't recognize that. They just view all kilowatt hours as the same. So that's something I think will probably change as we move into the future. However, the application is done on not only supermarket condensers, but on data centers, on rooftop units, and air-cooled chillers all around the United States, and been heavily rebated down south, obviously, because of long run hours and kilowatt hours that consume of that. Up here in the Northeast, you have less run hours that make it a little bit more difficult to get what we think is the appropriate incentive. However, most of the utilities in the Northeast have been great in helping us determine an incentive, and most of the customers are doing it not only to save energy, but also increase the capacity. Yeah. So many electric devices have been put inside buildings, and they do not upgrade the HVAC system. So this is a way to increase the capacity and help them in that way also.
Well, I'm glad you started that transition because I do want to take the conversation from, the core technology, what does it do physically, and then we talked a bit about the utilities, how they currently interact with Retrocool and the technology. But what I'd love you to share with us right now is some real stories. Give us an example of, a prospect that you went to or someone who came to you and they had this problem, introduced the technology. Walk us through what benefits they saw, what challenges you might have had in terms of implementation, and then ultimately what the client realized as a result of installing Retrocool.
Sure. Well, most of our systems have been put out at supermarkets and several on as I mentioned earlier, on data centers and regular office buildings and stuff. I'll give you an example. There was a supermarket chain in Massachusetts with about 60 supermarkets, and we put the Retromist system on about 30 of their supermarkets, kind of to help them because these supermarkets were spraying the roofs with hoses. You find that a lot, and those hoses don't do a good job, plus they deteriorate the condenser coils and stuff like that. We came in with a measure that was thermostatically turned on and off, or more importantly, we filtered the water and everything before they were throwing water on these coils and stuff. So we saved them a tremendous amount of water because our system only went on in the criteria of certain time frames, as opposed to actually running a hose for 4 months in a row, 24 hours a day. So they were surprised at not only the energy savings, but they were happily surprised with the dramatic reduction in water that they were being used at the water and sewer charges they had for that. So they were very happy. And once the actual success story went around the company, the facilities manager of the warehouse that supplied all the food and everything to the supermarket chain had a whole bunch of freezer condensers on top, and they were all spraying with hoses, and they were leaking the roof and causing a headache. He saw this, and then he took that opportunity to put it on their warehouse, and he was very delighted in saying that not only did this measure save energy, increase capacity, and reduce water and energy costs at the supermarkets, also at the headquarters, it did the same thing. So that was kind of a nice story to see where it went in one side of the company and other people gravitated to it.
That's great. It's funny the unintended consequences or benefits, right? So they prolong the life of the roof. They minimize the water damage inside the facility. And all I can imagine is that, for 4 months of the year, they've got a certain amount of their workforce is up on the roof, essentially with an idle activity, just spraying water to chill equipment down. It's not the ideal way to use equipment or personnel.
Yeah, they put a bunch of lawn sprinklers and leave them on for 6 months. Well, those things consume a lot of water, and people would go on the roof and it's like a supermarket, set it and forget it.
Yeah.
Well,
right.
When you get a $17,000 water bill, then you all of a sudden remember it.
Yeah, no kidding. So give us an idea of what's the expected savings. I mean, we've started with a profile of a 50,000 square foot supermarket spending $200,000 on electrical costs, and that costs are split between, cooling and lighting. What can folks expect from Retrocool?
Well, actually, if you look at the kilowatt hour savings by themselves, you might get anywhere between $15,000 to $25,000 reduction in your electric bill at a normal size supermarket in the Northeast. Remember, we have high costs in the Northeast. However, when you do this down south, you have lower costs but longer run hours. So it kind of equates to the same rough number of savings. And again, that depends upon some of your superstores have 2 refrigeration rooms. Most supermarkets have 1. So anywhere between that would be a typical savings. Now, in some areas of the country where your electric bills now are based on not only how much you use, but a lot of it's capacity related, the worst day of the year, worst hour of the year. When these systems are on, all of a sudden they can be saving not the $15,000, $20,000, but upwards of $30,000, $35,000 because the systems are reducing kW during the peak days of the ISOs, the peak day of the month for your regular LDC bill. So they actually save a lot more because of when they actually are operating. And that's something we show customers on their bills. We show them kW reduction at certain times, and it benefits them greatly. So the more kW related your bill, the better for energy savings.
Hey, Ron, let me pull you in on this one because I know this is an area of specialization for you as this, capacity charges. What I'd love you to comment on is twofold. One is the level of knowledge among the commercial buyers about the impact of capacity-related charges and the kinds of things they think they can do to lower their capacity charges.
Yeah, actually, Rich and I had a discussion, I think last week or a couple weeks ago, that there's very few customers actually dialed into how their demand charges during the summer will impact their bills. So, with the supermarkets, typically they have a fairly sophisticated energy manager. I would think they're dialed in. But in general, I would say my guess is 85% of the, larger commercial customers aren't really that sure or very well educated on the capacity charges and how it impacts their bill, which it really is amazing because it has a huge impact. And, that one day, that 1 hour, and if they're not managing that, it can affect their whole year worth of billing.
Yeah, good. And Rich, anything you want to add to Ron's comment?
Yeah, I mean, 2 things. Number one, I agree. It's amazing how many people you can tell them this and they agree with you, but they don't do anything. There's no action being taken, and it can be in some cases what you do during that hour in some parts of New England can equal 40% of your generation and transmission costs. So it's anything you be doing during that period of time is important. Also reducing your peak, in addition to that yearly 1 worst hour, also your monthly peaks for your regular electric bill. And as we move into the future with all this Internet of Things and the way the world's moving in the electric world, a lot of stuff's going to be based on time. And obviously, everything's going to cost more, and it's extremely hot outside due to that vapor compression system rule that I mentioned. So anything that can reduce energy during that period of time is good. And something should also be noted that when we go and we put the Retromist on an air-cooled condenser, nobody suffers inside the building. They can keep the same set points. Everybody's fine inside. And it just does its system by evaporating water. Same way we evaporate water as humans to keep cool. We evaporate water called sweat. We evaporate water and cool the air. So doing something when it's needed the most, and some folks will say, well, aren't you wasting water? Well, for every gallon we use of water to reduce kWh, the utility would have used 3 gallons to make the electricity. Yeah. So we're actually saving water from that point of view. And we're actually just doing something very simple, applied in a strategic manner to allow us to reduce the consumption of kilowatt hours in carbon during those warm hours. And, I keep on referring to the Northeast, but you get down south, we're looking at a bunch of stores in Arizona right now. We're obviously different climate. So, with their demand charges and stuff like that, by evaporating water there, we can reduce a fantastic amount of kilowatt hours and also save people water for those people that are, like I mentioned before, sprinkling.
Yeah, good. Now, Richard, you threw out a number of $15,000 to $25,000 kind of savings in a grocery store, and grocery stores have notoriously thin margins. Sometimes they estimate it to being 1%. So, if a store saves $20,000 in savings, what is that in top line revenue they have to generate to make up that kind of savings?
If it's probably, anywhere between $50 to $75 they have to sell to actually get $1. So every kilowatt hour, every dollar we save
stops them from having to sell $75.
Wow.
That's a great analogy. We tend to look at it more on the, if we save $20,000 a year, that's $25,000 we don't have to pay on electricity. Since our energy costs are almost equal to the profits, we increase the profits by $20,000.
Nice.
We generally, as a company, it's interesting. Great question, by the way, Leo. We generally go in and we have a list of 27 measures that we look at. So we're a very comprehensive company. So in addition to the Retromist, we will go and do a host of other things like variable speed drives on all the supply fans, condenser control fans, lowering their actual head pressures of their system, which also helps save them energy, putting doors on things, film on doors, controls, a lot of controls, energy-related things that are all mechanical refrigeration. So oftentimes we'll come out of a store and it may cost $300,000 to do what we do, but with a utility rebate thrown in there, the whole cost may be a year payback. So we look at different parts of the country with different technologies to put it together, optimize it, go get the custom rebates for those systems, because a lot of things we do are new and they have to be tested and sometimes measured, calculated, all these things, and put for the bucket. So when we go into a supermarket, I know we've concentrated on the Retromist in this discussion, but we look at all things that actually consume electricity and natural gas. And we pretty much have measures that we look at for every single one of those energy consuming devices. Some make sense, some don't make sense based on rates, structures, incentives, and energy costs. But we want to make sure that at the end of the day, in a lot of cases, we can reduce the energy usage in a supermarket by 20 to 25%, which is with a year payback with incentives, which is a fantastic opportunity for supermarkets to take advantage of.
That's great. Hey, Ron, before I give Rich the last word here as we try to bring this to a close here, in your experience, what has been some of the big successes in supermarket optimization? Talk about successes. And the other thing is, Ron, what kind of objection do you hear from that marketplace that slow people down from taking advantage of some of the opportunities that Rich has been discussing here?
One thing that I've noticed is that we've seen a couple local utilities here have utility or supermarket specific programs where they'll actually go in and do an audit and they'll have specific measures for those supermarkets. So I don't know, Rich, how have you integrated with those programs and been a contractor for those programs?
Yes, we integrate. Some of the utilities do hire third-party consulting firms to help target the supermarket industry, and they help us out a lot, actually. They assist us in expediting all our applications and forms and stuff. So that's worked out very well. Some of these companies have offices all around the United States, and there's a couple of different consulting companies that assist utilities out there. And we'll work very well with all of them because they have goals to meet, and they have specific, pretty good engineers that they concentrate in the supermarket industry or the data center industry or the hotel industry. So they know exactly what we're talking about. And the collaborative effect that is a great result for us, the customer, and also the utilities, helping to meet their goals. I will add one, Leo, that the biggest objection you get on doing energy efficiency, I guess, and I don't just stop it at what we do, but others is people don't have any money. They say they don't have any money. But I always look at it this way. If I walk into a location, the lights are on, and they tell me they don't have any money, I say, well, if you have no money, how do you pay your electric bill? And they always say, oh, we pay our electric bill. So I say to them, all we're trying to do is, instead of paying all this money to your electric utility, why don't you pay some of it to yourself? Why don't you just take some of your operating costs, give it to us to pay for the project over time, be net positive cash flow very quickly, and then 25% of that check you used to write out to the utility, you write out to your own bottom line or to your own pocket. A lot of people still go in the world of budgeting, have to budget stuff and find the money somewhere.
Well, every day you don't do energy efficiency, you're just paying the utility. And the utility, by the way, they never had to go in and fight. They never had to go in and sell themselves. You automatically pay them. So just remember, all this money that you've contributed to the energy efficiency funds, if you don't use them, your competitors are. And it's great for the environment, great for your bottom line. And just hope that people would realize that, reducing your energy costs, your operating budget is something that a lot of people are doing now and should do now.
That's great. That's great. And part of the mission of Energy Matters to You is to have our listeners, those who benefit from the technologies, continue to pay more to themselves as opposed to expending more to the utilities. So thank you for calling that out and encouraging folks to take that step and not use the lack of funds as an inhibitor to find out and how to implement energy efficiency technologies. Hey, Rich, you've got your hand in an awful lot of stuff here, the energy conservation training and auditing. Who's a good candidate to work with you? Well, who are the kinds of people that you want to hear from that you think you can have the most benefit to?
Sure. Retrocool, again, helps any type of commercial industrial customer, as well as some small customers. We obviously, supermarkets and groceries, we do a lot of work in. Data centers would be a great candidate to talk to us. Also, lighting companies, lighting ESCOs looking to be more comprehensive. As we spoke about earlier, the less lighting available, there's other things available, and these lighting ESCOs don't have to be proficient in this stuff. They just have to know to give us a holler so we can help them be more comprehensive. We work with them. Also, folks that might need additional cooling capacity due to problems. A lot of times we get called in not for energy savings, but more for capacity problems or they're overheating or something like that. Also, any utilities out there that may be listening and they want some demand reduction measures, reducing demand during the most important part of their peak part of the season. A lot of utilities, we were hired by one utility also to go after small C&I because of the high cost of kilowatt hours they pay. So any utilities looking for non-lighting type growth and opportunity, we can help them pinpoint in some non-lighting measures. So that's kind of the group that we're looking to hear.
That's a wide swath. Well, thank you very much for delivering all that to the marketplace. It's important work, and we're glad to have you as part of the Energy Matters to Your community.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it, Ron. Yeah.
So easy way to reach Rich Costello, president of Acela Energy Group, is at his main website, which is www.retrocoolenergy.com. It's all one word, retrocoolenergy.com. Rich, thanks again for being part of Energy Matters to You. We'll be watching your progress.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Ron, we've taken a little time off from putting together the podcast, and we've got a few improvements. Is that true?
That is correct. We expect at least one per month. We have a new platform on Podbean that we'll be promoting very soon.
Excellent. Well, good. So once again, we'd like to thank this episode's sponsor, Pro Insulation. Rely on the pros at Pro Insulation to provide the accurate information relevant to your project. When you're ready to add insulation to your home or business to reduce energy costs and increase comfort, call Pro Insulation at 860-356-5046 for your free consultation. This has been Leo Ryan and Ron Galuli on behalf of Energy Matters to You. That's all for now. Go make a difference. Thanks.